Hey, at least he's out on a boat with you.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
trying to keep that going as long as
How
possible.
old is he?
76 and some. My aunt and uncle are still in their 80s. Training their boat out.
Still
Yep.
doing it on their own.
Yep.
That's all.
All right. It's 6 o'clock, so we'll call the planning commission meeting of Monday, May 19th to order. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Hawley? Here. Commissioner Stoker?
Here.
Commissioner Urbani? Here. Commissioner Chorin?
Here.
Alderman Parrish?
Here.
Mayor Nervin?
Here. First up is approval of the minutes from April 21st.
Move approval.
Question in a second. Any comments, corrections? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, on to a couple of public hearing items. The first is Thompson Project Management for From Family Food. The applicant is seeking a conditional use grant amendment in building and site plan amendment approval to allow for an approximately 16,500 square foot, 3.5 story office building for the property located at 11050 North Weston Drive. Is there a motion to go into public hearing?
So moved.
Motion in a second. Please call the roll. We're going into public hearing. Just making
Commissioner
sure everyone's
Hawley?
on their
Aye.
toes.
Commissioner Stoker?
Aye.
Commissioner Urbani?
Aye.
Commissioner Chorin?
Aye.
Alderman Parrish?
Here.
Mayor Nervin?
Aye. You're now in public hearing. Is there anyone here this evening other than staff or applicant who wishes to speak about this item? Hearing and seeing none. Is there a motion to close public
So
hearing?
moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We are now out of public hearing. We'll have a short update from staff on this item.
This is the third building for the Foxtown development, known as E3. I have a map on the screen to kind of give some context of the area. So the first two buildings as part of this parcel are E1 and E2, which are located here and here. Parcels going in this area right down here, right adjacent to the pocket homes, which are to the east. In terms of the plan itself, the site plan, I'll pull up for you. It meets all the criteria of the town center zoning code with two exceptions. There's a reduction in requested for the setback of the parking in the back as well as to the south. One of the south is we're supportive of because this is all an outlot of the Foxtown development, so this will remain green space. One on the east, we're supportive of with conditions because this is to match the connection point to the development of E2. They had to line up pretty closely. This one was granted a waiver at the time. So this one, we're supportive of the waiver, but we want to see additional landscaping to screen the parking lot lights from the neighboring pocket home to the east. In terms of other site plan criteria, I do have a picture. There's a couple other things we're looking at doing. One of them, we'd like to see this sidewalk lined up with the sidewalk that feeds into the pocket homes. Right now, there's a 6-foot jog in there. There's also a 50-foot easement, access easement that has to be amended because that includes part of the building currently. We're also looking to add crosswalks to match what's on the other side of the street right now. There's just showing just one going to the north. Now we know that there is a bunch going on right now to the west, but eventually it'll redevelop. So we'd like to see that pattern developed. And then we're also asking one, I think it's labeled as Exhibit A in your packet. I don't know if there was anything in the packet, but this is another location for a crosswalk down in this area down here. In order to line up this sidewalk, we're going to either need to have the building shrunk down a little bit or shift it to the south. Can be shifted to the south with the setback requirement, but there is also a We Energies easement in that location, so they'd have to amend that easement with We Energies. In terms of landscaping, I'll show you the landscape plan. So what we're looking for is just additional landscaping kind of in this area to screen those parking lot lights. We're also looking for a couple trees in this location here to kind of match us on the north side of the street. And we're also looking for 2 trees on along the street to kind of match the same pattern that we did for the rest of Weston Drive. Lighting plan meets our code. They're using the same town center fixture in the parking lot. We are also asking for a lighting in this location here and as well as this location here. There's one across the street. We're just trying to continue that same intersection pattern. And then we want one at the terminus of the development. We're not sure what's going to happen to the south, but we'd like to have a light here at least just to guide pedestrians on the sidewalk to get to the backside of this development. In terms of the building, I think the building matches the E1 and E2. They tend to do a nice job on these buildings. This is the rendering of the building. There was one requirement that we added to it that the grading plan looked like there might be some exposure to some of the materials at the bottom. So we're just asking that that finished material be located all the way to the bottom, which is visible from the site. It doesn't really show in the rendering. It's only a foot or two, but we just want to make sure that there's not exposed concrete at the bottom. The reason this is a conditional use grant is again because there's over 2 stories, which is required in the town center zoning. So as part of that, we look at a shadow study. The shadow study is shown right here. This is in your packet. The only impacts of the shadow study are shown very minimal. In December in the morning, it kind of does shadow a little bit of the Foxtown West House apartments in Foxtown. And then in the afternoon, it shadows one of the end houses on the pocket homes on the northeast northeast section of the development. So with that, it's pretty minimal in terms of the impact of the surrounding property. So we're supportive of the height raising to the 3.5 stories. We put a condition there just to make sure that they comply with our town center zoning district with regard to the windows on the first floor and the doors opening to the front, so that we keep that pedestrian area activated on all sides. So with that, we do recommend approval according to the conditions in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Stoker?
Just a quick question. Can you repeat what you said regarding the sidewalk on the southwest? You're trying to get it to go across Weston or just terminate there?
It would be basically, you're talking about down here?
Yes.
That would be just like a curb ramp.
Okay.
They would put in the curb ramp for a future, in case something on the side happens. We just want to have that available there. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Parrish?
Yes, can you explain number 8, the door on the west facade to be in use when the building is open?
Well, there was only one door on that elevation. And we want to make sure that that door remains active. Right now, there's doors also on the east elevation, which is where the parking lot is, but with all our town center developments, we require all of the doors that face the public streets to be activated at all times. So I just want to make sure that they.
I just misread it. Thought it was just incomplete sentence, but no, I get what you're saying.
Oh, okay, sorry. Thank you. So.
A really nice development, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Has been and continues to be.
We're really thankful for it.
Any other questions?
Dedicated to that.
Any other questions for the commission? Commissioner Chorin? Yeah, I'm gonna get a couple first round of questions and we'll turn it over to the applicant.
Questions for the applicant?
You do?
Yes.
Okay, go shoot, fire away.
I mean, it's rather interesting that basically 2 floors of the building are dedicated to a pickleball court and mezzanine observing the pickleball court. Is there any thought that in the future that mezzanine floor might be completed so that they can put more offices in once pickleball fades out? Or that, I mean, it's not really an issue. I'm just curious.
Sure. We talked about it. It was meant to be a flex space from employees. There can be big presentations in there with all their employees. But right now, they're multiple sites around the state too. So having a big space where they can gather and congregate, that was the main goal.
Okay, so it's more than.
It's more than just the pickleball.
Okay.
It's the ability to have a nice flex space for everything.
Understood. Okay.
Any other questions from the commission? The applicant like to provide any additional detail?
So there's evolving plans with this building as we've gone through the programming of the building. Whether there's going to be 1 or 2 or 3 pickleball courts, or as Eric said, that's a flex space that will have multiple uses for prom and the Foxtown Hospitality Group. We did see one note in the packet that no public use of the pickleball courts would be allowed. And that just kind of raised the question in everybody's mind, what that means and why that would be a restriction.
Sure, I can address that. Our code in town center allows for indoor recreational facilities, but they cap on at 3,000 square feet. So this is larger than 3,000 square feet, so then you would be in violation of the code if it was open to the public. So you wanted to make it open to the public and you reduced it to 3,000 square feet, then we wouldn't have an issue with it.
So would you only measure the
Square
size of the pickleball courts?
The square feet of that floor.
What if not all the first floor is dedicated to pickleball?
Yeah, the area that dedicated to the actual facility. So, I mean, it would also, if you include locker rooms and things like that, it's like no different than a workout place. You include the square footage of the tenant area.
Okay. Is there some reason why 3,000 square feet was the number chosen for that restriction?
This goes way back to when we created the town center zoning district back in 2008. We just wanted to make sure we had small scale, facilities. We didn't want to have like a big, large valleys or anything like that in the town
Sure.
center. So I don't exactly remember why we came up with that number, but 3,000 square feet has been the standard since
Oh,
2008.
okay. So let's just say we had doubles teams on each, let's say there are 3 courts, which right now it shows it might be less. Well, let's just say that there were 3 and there were doubles teams on all those courts. That would be 12 people occupying that space. Now, there could be a few more teams waiting to play, but it's still a very low number of people. So although the space right now is larger than 3,000 square feet, it's a very small use and a small number of people in that space. So we wondered if there's any consideration for that, or I don't know if it would be a variance or a different conditional use permit you'd have to apply for, but we'd just like to understand if there's a process to move forward with that.
I'm glad you're asking because I had a note to ask a question about this item as well. I haven't reviewed the code recently, but if someone were to petition for something larger, would they also have to then get a conditional use grant? Or is it just,
It's just straight out. So
Okay.
they need to do a text amendment to ask for larger square footage in the text amendment.
it kind of struck me as a little, I understand the reason for the restriction and wanting to keep things smaller scale, but I think not all pickleball courts aren't the intensity of use of a Bally's or a Planet Fitness either. So
Well, I don't think it was anticipated at the time when we created the zoning ordinance at pickleball.
no one's
Correct.
talked about pickleball in
I don't think we've heard
2008.
of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So I guess I'm open to that item being relaxed, but
Okay.
only because of the particular use and the fact it's not going to be particularly intense.
Yeah,
But I don't know how to handle that
Well, they would have to
here.
go through the process. Again, this is meant for like, if this is open to the public as a membership based
Right.
thing. So if it's from Foods that are still running it and it's members of the employees or the guests or anything like that, I guess that's still not an issue. But again, we want to put you on notice that if you ever decide to say, okay, we're going to create a pickleball little business here and we're going to open it up to public, then we're going to have to do something with regard to a text amendment. Make that
Well,
work.
yeah, even fast forward, in 10 years, maybe Prom doesn't want to use the space for pickleball anymore.
Right.
It could be a cool little business, but it's still not particularly intense in use.
Yeah.
Just because you can only fit so many people on the court at the same time and you got the next wave coming, maybe tops you have 20, 25 people there,
Right.
plus a couple staff.
Yeah, I just didn't think it was a battle you wanted to take on now since you didn't know. So I just want to put you on notice that.
I'm
that
not
was
sure how much of a
required.
battle it would be.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
depending on
Yeah.
the scale of it.
well, hopefully not, but I mean, we don't want to hold up the process because
Yeah.
we need to get on to the next phase of this so we can start construction this year to meet our deadline to finish this building for the end of
26, yes.
So we're committed to that. But we wanted to bring up the question and did note there's also in the town center zoning, another approved use is private club or lodge. So if this were considered a private club, let's say, would the use be allowed without going for a text amendment?
I'd try to see more information if possible, but I would need more details on how that would work.
Well, I guess if there's no urgency, I mean, there's a general question, but there's no urgency on that item. I think let's keep the dialogue open. And if there's something that needs to be done, we could look at the private club aspect or something along those lines. If
Okay.
there's an amendment needed that makes sense in the future, I'm open to it. So as
Okay.
long as I'm here, you'll have someone listening, but
Thank you.
So you got a little under 3 years minimum.
Not that he's counting.
No, it's fresh in my head that we just had an election, so.
Yeah.
Commissioner Parrish.
That's where my mind was going, that if this was an amenity to that Foxtown campus, I wouldn't consider that public. So
Yes.
in my mind, so I don't know if you want that.
It's kind of along the lines of a private club, yeah.
Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
like a private club. It's kind of like the Spur 16. They have a clubhouse for all their different buildings and but yeah, I just view it as a recreational amenity for,
Yeah, I think under the current
Campus.
code, the only area where he would run into an issue is if somebody like decided to open up a pickleball USA or something like that. And then I had it open to the public, then that would be a violation.
Commissioner Chorin.
One of the requests was to provide that sidewalk on the north side of the building.
Yes.
I'm assuming you would rather shift the building south than to reduce the footprint.
You're right. We're waiting for We Energies, come back to us on that. We actually need to have diggers mark those utilities, so we can determine exactly where they are to see if We Energies will allow us to amend the easement to be a less dimension than 15 feet. They weren't super hopeful on that idea, so we may not be successful in being able to move that easement down to shift the building down. And you're right, we prefer not to shrink the building. It's already a very tight site, and we're trying to get as much out of it as we can. So the preference would be first to shift the building down. If not, how much latitude would we have with the sidewalk having a little bit of a jog in it instead of going straight across the top on the north?
So right now, it's just between you and We Energies, right?
It is.
Okay.
I assume we're talking about the 6-foot shift.
Yeah, so basically, if you can see it from here, it kind of sidewalk runs down and then it drops down here and then it swings over here and then it lines up with this existing sidewalk on the part of the Foxhole Pocket Home. So to make it straight across, you need about 5 to 6 feet, basically.
We come back to you once we hear from the entities. That this will probably be marked for the end of this week. And then, it takes a little time with We Energies to get answers. So we might not know for a couple of weeks.
Well, that's up to the commission. Our recommendation is to make it straight across. So if you're concerned about easement and you don't want to reduce the building, that'd be up to the commission to make a decision on.
So is that,
Sure.
cabling element?
I wouldn't table it. I would
Well, I
maybe,
know it's in there.
I would
It's
make if you wanted something different what's written, I would offer a amendment when making a motion,
great.
directing staff to work out that detail as is enabled by We Energy's willingness or lack thereof to give them the easements they need.
Way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's kind of a hypothetical right now because we don't know what they're going to come back to us with. But if we were stuck with the current easement size, then we would ask, we could have the jog. We can shift it, we'll definitely shift it but we're trying not to shrink the building.
Is there any opportunity to shift the easement further to the south, or are you going on to a different?
No.
Yeah, it's one thing, if they made the easement centered around the utility, they could just offset it, but in the same space, but
It's in the retention pond at that
Is it?
time. That's the neighboring parcel. That would be the only
Oh.
issue that we've seen, but I don't know.
Yeah, that could be a stormwater issue. So I suspect moving the lines is a non-starter for We Energies. Just, would they give us 5 or 6 feet of that easement? Can they live with that? I don't know.
I guess I'd ask staff, how, how strong is your opinion on needing that sidewalk to be straight? Is it a safety concern, an aesthetic concern?
Well, it's just, this is how we developed the Foxtown Development Neighborhood. It's all pretty linear. So
Yeah.
this remains linear. This, I don't want, we prefer not to see the jog, and the building hasn't been constructed yet. The only
Right.
the rationale I heard from Stephen Perry Smith, who I talked to a little bit about this a couple weeks ago, was that they're tight on the pickleball court sizes, and that if they shrink the building too much, they might lose some depth on one of the pickleball courts. So that's why we gave them the option to look at the easement, and maybe shift that a little bit, because we're only talking about 5 or 6 feet here at the most, so.
Well, I agree. I would be most in favor of We Energies working with them, but that's probably I'm guessing you're not gonna get very far there.
50-50 at best, probably, yeah. But we can always be hopeful.
So any further questions or is there a motion?
I'm gonna make a motion for approval based on staff recommendations with the modification to number 5, that upon the applicant's discussion with We Energies, the sidewalk on the north side of the building be discussed further. I come to that point.
Or made straight to the max extent possible.
Right.
And if we can't come to an agreement, it'll come back here for that one item. Yeah,
Second.
motion and second is that ad hoc amendment worded.
Yeah, I
for
think we could figure
staff?
something out.
Okay. Sounds good. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Polly.
Aye.
Commissioner Stover.
Aye.
Commissioner Chorin.
Aye.
Commissioner Urbani.
Aye.
Alderman Parrish.
Aye.
Mayor Nervin.
Hi,
Vote passes.
great. Thank you. Looking forward to
Very
it.
much.
Next up, we have a public hearing for Forma Design Gallery. The applicant is seeking a conditional use grant approval to allow for a design showroom. The property located at 12080 North Corporate Parkway.
Motion to open public hearing.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now in public hearing. Is there anyone here not affiliated with this project who wishes to speak on this item? Hearing and seeing none, is there a motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Back in regular session again. Quick overview from staff.
Okay, so this project is for conditional use grant approval to allow for a showroom design gallery showcasing home products and furnishing inventory for the property at 12080 North Corporate Parkway. The parcel zoned B4 and C2. If you'll recall, at the March 17th Planning Commission meeting and also at the April 8th Common Council meeting, a text amendment was approved allowing for design showrooms as a conditional use. So this is the same applicant associated with that project. The Forma Design Gallery will be a collection of showrooms showcasing products and furnishings involved in home renovation and new home construction. It will operate as a multi-tenant facility where each showroom will be independently operated and leased. Building will be open to the public with appointments encouraged. The applicant is not proposing any changes to the exterior of the building or the site plan in general. Staff went out to do a site visit to check that the existing landscaping and lighting on site is compliant. Parking lot lights on site are full cutoff and compliant with city code. We did do the site visit during the day, so not confirm whether all of the lights are functional. So that will be a condition of approval that the applicant ensure functionality of all the lights on site. The site does have some missing trees and potential trees that might be dead or dying, but obviously because the season, it's a little hard to tell whether or not that just might be, they haven't budded yet. So as a condition, staff will do another site visit no later than June 30th to confirm that landscaping conditions are compliant. And at that date, if they're not compliant, then staff will come to an agreement with the applicant to confirm landscaping compliance prior to the issuance of final. The screen shows the conceptual floor plan of what the layout of the building will be. Again, this is conceptual. The showroom sizes and locations are subject to change depending on leases being finalized and who decides to rent out the space, but this is kind of a general idea, and the common area and office areas will be as they're shown on the floor plan. Another condition of approval will be that staff review and approve the final floor plan once that's decided. If you'll remember from the March 17th meeting, the products on display are going to be for selection only, so customers won't be walking out with in-store inventory. The hours will be Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., which aligns with the neighboring uses, which are also primarily B4 buildings. The peak occupancy is expected to be 4 people per 1,000 square feet, and this should compensate for 1 employee, 1 designer, and 2 potential clients. That's the peak occupancy. That would be around 160 people. There are 194 parking spots on site, so even at that peak occupancy, which the applicant anticipates the day-to-day to be much less, parking should account for, that peak number of people in there. So all of that considering, staff is recommending approval of the conditional use based on the mentioned conditions.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? Looks amazing in the pictures. I'm excited. Commissioner Parrish.
Yeah, I agree. It does look amazing. Building's been vacant for a while, so I'm glad. We didn't know when we changed the zoning code what building you were talking about, so glad it's this building. And is this one business then that will have the occupancy permit, and then all your tenants don't need occupancy permits? I'm just wondering, is it?
I would be anticipating that I'd have show occupancy.
So you'll enter into leases then with each space arrangements with each vendor?
I'm just effectively the building owner, where most of my income will come from rental income. And each one of the showrooms will independently operate that showroom as part of their normal course.
Thank you.
Kind of like a typical Mequon hair salon, except a little larger scale of it, yeah. Commissioner Stoker.
I have a question for staff. If they were to come back and look for Saturday hours, would that be a problem in the zoning?
I would say the neighboring uses are mostly kind of that typical Monday through Friday, because they're mostly office spaces and kind of the more professional services. For discussion, if that was.
I think other developments throughout the country may do Saturday by appointment only.
Yeah.
Where, like a vendor would open the building, see a client.
Kind of understanding your business, I
Yeah.
thought that might be something that might come down the road. I didn't know if there was something specifically in the code against those hours on weekends or not.
No, I mean, we typically react to the applicant's request. in terms of
Yep.
hours of operation.
Thank you for bringing that up. I don't anticipate that being the case, but as operations start to go, I may come back to this group and ask for maybe it's 10 to 6 with like 10 to 12 or something on Saturday or something. But I know it's subject to this, but the current plan is to just have it.
Very interesting concept. Looking forward to it.
Any other questions or a motion perhaps?
I'll motion to approve per staff's recommendations.
Motion in a second. If anyone's got any last questions, we can still talk about it for a little bit. Otherwise, hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Looking forward to the opening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On to regular business. Just 2 items there as well. The first being Arch Solar C&I for Frank L. Weinberg Library. Applicant is seeking a building and site plan amendment to allow for solar panels for the property located at 11345 North Cedarburg Road, otherwise known as the library. Quick overview from staff.
Yeah, so this is a building and site plan amendment for the installation of a photovoltaic system on the Frank L. Weinberg Library located at 11445 North Cedarburg Road. The city of Mequon is limited by state statutes as to what conditions can be placed on alternative energy systems, so that was factored in when evaluating this project. This system will include 169 modules split between 3 arrays on the 3 flat roof sections of the western end of the building. The necessary equipment that's required for this will be located on the north-facing exterior wall on the north side of the building, roughly halfway between the east and west edges of the building. There is an existing utility transformer there that's well screened by the existing fence and evergreens, those tall trees on site. So this equipment will similarly be screened in that same area. The library has public view from all 4 sides, from Cedarburg Road, Division Street, from the parking lot to the south of the property, and from the interurban trail to the west. The view from Cedarburg Road, which would be from the east side of the building looking west, will be obstructed. Panels will be obstructed by the pitched roof sections of the building, so you won't be able to see it from Cedarburg Road looking towards the library. You will, however, potentially be able to see it from the south of the building looking north, from the north building looking south, and then from west of the building looking east. So the applicant submitted these sightline renderings, which are labeled as Exhibit A in the packet, kind of showing where someone who's 6 feet tall would be able to see the solar panels. There's also a map attached that shows roughly that radius. So within that blue radius is where you wouldn't be able to see the solar panels. Once you're outside of that radius, you will have some view of them. Along the western and northern sides of the property, there's some trees that should screen it. So when you're on the interurban trail, especially when those trees are fully fleshed out, it'll be pretty well screened. Again, outside of this radius, you'll have some potential visibility. The solar panels are only 22 inches in height, so visibility even outside of that radius should be fairly minimal. And with all that in mind, staff is recommending approval of the building and site plan amendment to allow for the solar panels.
It's just Thiensville to the north, so
Right.
they're not here to represent
You didn't say
themselves.
it, did you?
Oh, you have to have a little friendly ribbing.
Oh, of course.
Tell that one to John Rosing later. He'll have a good chuckle. Any questions from the commission? All right,
I will motion approval per staff's recommendations.
Second.
motion in a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? That item passes as well. Happy solar paneling. Our last item this evening is Trinity Church. Applicant is seeking a minor request approval for a sign waiver to allow for an off-premises sign at a reduced setback for the property located at 11458 North Wauwatosa Road.
Okay, so this project is for a sign waiver to allow for an off-premises sign at a reduced setback for the property located at 11458 North Wauwatosa Road. At the December 2nd, 2024 Planning Commission meeting, a land division separating the existing church and parsonage from the cemetery was approved, so that's factor in this sign waiver. The sign waiver is for a directional off-premises sign on the front lot of the previously approved CSM. This will help direct the public to the Trinity Lutheran Cemetery, which is at the rear of the property, not really visible from the road. So this will help kind of show where that is for people who are aware of, the Trinity Lutheran Cemetery there. Off-premises signs are referred to in the code as any sign that advertises, calls attention to, or identifies an entity, enterprise, or property situated on a different lot than the sign. These are typically prohibited, so that's why the sign waiver is required. And the signs also being proposed at 6 feet, whereas the city of Mequon requires a 10-foot setback from the property line. So there's 2 sign waivers at play here. Per staff request, the applicant placed 2 stakes on the site, which you can see in these pictures on the screen. That first stake is at 6 feet. That's where the applicant is proposing to put the sign, and the second is at 10 feet. After doing the site visit, staff does believe that the tree line creates a visual encumbrance to visibility of the sign. That 10-foot setback will kind of be behind where the tree line is and further into the shaded area. So with that in mind, and also considering that the Wisconsin Department of Transportation owns a good deal of frontage of the street for right-of-way, staff is supportive of the sign placement at 6 feet from the property line. And we also want to note that even at that 6 feet, there might be some reduced visibility. You can kind of tell that here. It is still in that shaded area of the trees, but nonetheless, it's better than the 10-foot setback. The sign proposed will be aluminum in material and mounted on a metal post and will read Trinity Lutheran Cemetery. The renderings, which are in the packet. First one, page 110. So the renderings show the sign as being proposed perpendicular to Wauwatosa Road with arrows pointing towards the cemetery, but we've since clarified with the applicant that it will actually be parallel to Wauwatosa Road and no arrows. So it'll just read Trinity Lutheran Cemetery. So staff, when evaluating the sign and considering frontage that it has on Wauwatosa Road, as well as City of Mequon's design standards, is recommending that it be designed as a hanging plaque, similar to the St. Francis Borgia Cemetery sign, which is included in the packet on page 115 for reference of what we're suggesting a different design be. Staff is also recommending that the sign be hung on a wooden post rather than a metal pole to aid in cohesivity with the other freestanding sign on the site that's also wooden in material. When doing the site visit and evaluating the project, staff was made aware that the existing monument sign, which is now just the post, there's no sign there, may have been installed out of compliance and not in accordance with the permit conditions at that 10-foot setback. It's likely closer to that 6-foot that this new sign is being proposed at. So as a condition of approval in allowing for this off-premises sign, we are requiring that the non-compliant sign issue be resolved prior to the installation of the off-premises sign. With all of that in mind, staff is recommending approval of the sign waiver based on those conditions.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions from any of the commissioners?
You reference page 115, the packet. To show that, I don't have a page 115.
Oh, yeah.
Can you pull that up?
There we go. So this is kind of the design staff came to the conclusion to recommend, kind of more like a hanging plaque. Given that it's
Yeah.
going to be, on that front street and visible to the public, we thought this might be, not a terribly hard or more expensive sign to create, but a little more visually appealing.
Okay,
I don't know if
Applicant.
it's appropriate to address you or not, but,
sure.
um,
Now is the perfect time.
pardon?
Now is the perfect time.
Okay. We thank you for considering these waiver requests. I think that, and we also thank the staff for recommending that you accept them. I don't know how many of you know the story of Trinity at 11458 North Wauwatosa Road. After 157 years of service in the community, the congregation voted to dissolve. Vote was held on May 5th, final service on September 8th. In an effort to sell the church and the parsonage, which is located on the west half of the property, and to retain control of the church cemetery, which is on the east half of the property, the congregation sought and gained approval to divide the property into two distinct sections. One section, the church, the parsonage, and the parking lot, and the other section, the cemetery. Trinity accepted an offer to purchase the church and the cemetery, the church and the parsonage from the Worldwide Mission Society Church of God, with closing on February 24th. Buyer granted two easements, one across the parking lot to the north entrance of the cemetery, and another, a 3-foot by 3-foot area for the permanent erection of a sign. The placement of the easements and the accompanying access agreement was approved by the Mequon city attorney. The new church is now worshiping in the original Trinity structure. In the meantime, Trinity requested of Christ Alone Lutheran Church here in Thiensville that the congregation would assume ownership of the Trinity Cemetery and that it preserve and maintain the cemetery in future decades. Christ Alone congregation accepted this proposal on May 5th. At present, a deed is being prepared with legal counsel and arrangements are in place to bequeath $450,000 to Christ Alone for the future support of the cemetery. Trinity leaders advised Christ Alone that Trinity would assume the cost to ready the cemetery for the final transfer. This is where the two cemetery signs come in. Both signs intended to indicate to people who already knew the cemetery, whose grandparents and parents were buried in the cemetery, that the cemetery was still in existence, even though a new church had taken over the church and the parsonage. Trinity envisioned two 24-inch by 18-inch signs made of aluminum with black letters mounted on a metal post. One sign would be placed near the street and would simply identify the cemetery, Trinity Lutheran Cemetery. A second sign would be placed inside the north entrance of the cemetery, would include the cemetery name and contact information, a phone number, and a website for Christ Alone. These are the signs for which we sought permits. The sign inside the cemetery was approved by the Planning Commission staff. The sign near the road requires the waivers we are seeking and which your staff is recommending. We will be pleased if you see fit to grant those waivers. We are concerned, however, about several of the conditions which the staff has added to the waiver agreement. First of all, although we are not convinced of the need for cohesivity with the new church sign, we are willing to mount the sign on a wooden pole. We are more concerned with the staff's condition that the sign be designed as a hanging plaque, similar to the St. Francis Borgia Cemetery sign, which you had on the screen a moment ago. For one thing, the St. Francis Borgia sign is at least 3 times larger than the sign we request and is designed artistically with symbols, scroll lettering, and a border. It also is surrounded by graves and a stone pillar. It is not surrounded by trees. It seems aesthetically pleasing. We question whether a small aluminum sign placed as a hanging plaque is aesthetically pleasing. In our research with sign companies, the cross beam securing the small plaque will eventually droop. The aluminum sign will also dangle and bend in the wind and eventually require maintenance. Our vendor contends that a wooden sign must be used rather than an aluminum sign. Therefore, we respectfully request that the staff's condition requiring a hanging plaque be withdrawn. Secondly, we are most concerned with the stipulation that the existing non-compliance sign shall be resolved prior to the installation of the off-premises sign. The main Trinity sign, that is, the non-compliance sign, was approved by your staff and installed in 2021. Placement of the present sign easement, the placement of this 3x3 present sign easement was based on the juxtaposition of that sign. I went out tonight and looked again, and the 3x3 sign is right in line with the old sign, and it's kind of straddling the 6x10 foot limitation situation. I cannot say why the larger sign was improperly placed. I remember walking out in the middle of Wauwatosa Road with a tape measure and measuring from the middle of the road to see where to place the sign. I thought we had it right, but I guess we didn't. We measured carefully on the basis of existing sketches of the property line. The sign has been standing there for 4 years and its placement has not been challenged. The new church has removed the boards from the Trinity with Trinity information. Only the posts are standing. According to a church representative, there are no definite plans to reactivate the sign at this time. The representative was not aware when I talked to him that the church will need Planning Commission study and approval before the sign can be placed. It is probable that months will pass before these issues can be resolved. Gary Greisch and I are two old guys. We're the last ones left. And we've been given the assignment to try to bring this situation to a close. We're trying to carry out our promises to Christ alone, which said, we'll take care of getting the sign ready, then you can take it over for the future. Unexpected and unhappy delays have forced the process to dissolve the congregation to continue for over a year. We need this project to be finished. We respectfully request that the staff's condition concerning the resolution of the non-compliant sign be withdrawn, and that the planning commission treat the non-compliant sign on a separate basis. Should you grant the waivers and our requests, we intend to install these signs as soon as possible. Thank you. I know that took a lot of time, but I'm a preacher. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. I guess I have a question about the non-compliant sign.
Could you speak a little louder, please?
Sure, yeah, we don't have our PA system because we're in building renovations. The non-compliant sign, is that on property these folks control anymore, or is it on Christ alone's?
It's on the property of the new owner.
Yeah, so I'm struggling with how we can actually have them remove that sign without them being party to that agreement.
This sign's going in the same spot. The sign's going on the same parcel, the pole sign, so if they're agreeing to allow them to put a sign on this piece, they can,
Are they granting them an easement for this sign?
yes.
Is the easement documented?
Yes,
Does the easement include the space for the old sign?
easement is documented. Easement is documented.
Because if the easement does not include the location of the old sign, they don't have the right to go on there and take care of it.
No, but the existing property owner is a party to this application. They had to sign off on the application in order to allow this to happen. As the property owner, they can be held responsible legally.
I would maybe recommend we give them time to comply with that and not bother these poor people.
It's relatively straightforward. I mean, the sign is.
Yep, I get it. It's all complicated. This thing has been incredibly complicated. We've had,
No, what I'm saying is that the sign is mostly gone already. This whole area where it says Trinity is not there.
I'm not saying not to get rid of it. I'm just saying give the property owner time to comply.
Give the owner a notice. to
Yeah, give it
comply. It's-
owner a
it's
notice
force it on
and-
the current owner.
Yeah, and
Well,
give
they
it.
guys
have
out.
to With our sign.
I'm not suggesting it does. I'm trying to divorce the two and like let you go forward while they have time to react. Is there someone else? Are you with these gentlemen up here?
I'm with the new church.
Okay.
We just found out about how the sign's out of compliance, so I know we plan on, running for new sign. But now that we know it's in the wrong place, we'll have to buy.
I think this is gonna happen naturally anyway,
Yes, yes.
but maybe not at the same pace that these gentlemen would like to get their sign erected. I'm somewhat sympathetic. I know a little bit of the history. There's been many fingers in the pie and many people claiming to be in charge over time that has slowed this down regrettably. That's a whole other story that we don't have to go through here. Commissioner Chorin.
And I also agree with them with regards to your recommendation of the attachment of their sign to a post. I mean, that thing's gonna flop around. I don't see rationale, aesthetic or otherwise, for having that, and then just have the wooden post and attach the sign to it.
I think they were even gonna go with a wrought iron pole. or
Put a
something.
wooden pole, if you want a wooden pole in there, put the sign on there.
Yeah. Commissioner Urbani.
I agree. I think the aesthetic, I understand where you're going with the aesthetics and trying to keep it matched up, but this is a property that's totally separate from the new church's section, so I think it's actually appropriate that the signs look totally different to indicate that the cemetery, which is under different control, is back behind the new church, so that the signs look different, feel different. I think that's fine in this case.
Any other comments or questions? The commissioners? Or a craftily crafted motion?
Move to approve with the only condition being that the setback that the sign shall be set back no closer than 6 feet from the property line. And final staff review and approval of sign. So essentially eliminating half of number 1 and number 2.
You don't want to put any time limit on compliance with the other sign?
I don't know.
If it's not tied to this off-premise sign, then we'll just handle it through enforcement.
Okay.
It won't be tied at all to this application.
Okay.
Or how about tying removal of the old post to a gating item for installation of the new sign, which is forthcoming but not ready to be. They're gonna come forward with a request for a new monument
The
sign.
way to resolve the non-compliant sign is to get rid of the existing posts that have no panels
Right.
attached to it. So you can just remove it. I mean, the risk there is if they wanted to keep it at that location with their new sign, they're coming back to planning commission for a waiver anyway.
Right.
If they wanted to keep it there, so the risk there is that they're removing wooden posts that they might have been allowed to
believe.
keep at the end of the day anyway, but. Yeah, there's lots of ways to
Yeah.
resolve this issue.
Well, then I'll second your motion.
Okay. Motion and a second. You repeat it again, just to make sure we're all tracking.
So move to approve with the conditions, the only conditions being the sign shall be set back no closer than 6 feet from the property line. And final staff review and approval of sign permits.
Okay, so as written in the packet, minus item 2,
Half of 1 and number 2 would be scratched.
half of 1 and, okay. First half of part 1 and
Is-
none of part 2.
First half.
And-
Okay.
Yeah, yep, first half of part 1 up until the and then none of part 2. Okay, so is everyone clear?
Condition.
Pardon?
That's the only condition, the first part of part 1.
Yeah, the off-premise sign shall be set back no closer than 6 feet from the property line, period. And then part 2 goes away completely and final staff review and approval of sign permits.
So put a wooden sign up.
Yep.
Sign at the 6-foot mark or no closer than 6 foot.
And we
Which is
can do
what
that
the
as soon as
NRE
possible, as soon as we can.
As soon as we vote on it, presuming it passes, and then I come back and sign it a couple days later when staff approves it, so.
I'm
Sorry, no, yeah,
So
yes,
We
but
got
it takes a few days for it to go through, yes, sorry.
And when you get old, you can't walk and you can't hear, so.
I know, yeah,
Oh,
it
you
beat-
don't.
it beats,
I do.
my eyes are already filing and I got hearing loss in 1 ear, but yeah, it beats the alternative. Any more comments or questions from the commission? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hall. Aye. Commissioner Stoker.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner-
You're voting now.
Yeah, we're close.
Commissioner Bonney. Aye. Commissioner Chorin.
Aye.
Alderman Parrish.
Aye.
Mayor Nervin.
Hi,
Vote passes.
all right. You're
Very
welcome.
good.
You're good to go.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Next, we just have our single announcement, next meeting, Monday, June 23rd. Same lovely accommodations in the basement, same time. And we're about halfway to new digs in the council chambers upstairs at that point in time. So with that being,
Yeah.
In June.
hopefully it's warmer, yeah.
Well, this is beautiful fall weather we're having.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah, almost
Crazy.
bordering on winter.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion is second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Well done.
Thank you.
Look at that. 54.